Welcome to the Money Panda, hosted by Elvis Kolawole.
Robert Drage had quite a few hot takes on the world of stablecoins.
Hi everyone, you're welcome to my vlog, and with me here is Robert Drage or Robert Drage.
Hi,
I don't know if I've
everyone.
murdered his name.
It's Drage. No worries, you got it right.
And he is a crypto news reporter, and we're here to talk about stablecoins. I mean, this is a month where we've had to grapple with the reality of stablecoins and where they actually fit in the future of the ecosystem and what effects they could actually have for cryptocurrencies and blockchain and Web 3.0 as a whole. So I'm here with Robert, and we're going to talk about stablecoins, definitely. So the first thing I want to ask, as I said previously, is why do you think stablecoins are important? I think I know why stablecoins are important to me, right? I'd like to know from your perspective, why do you think stablecoins are important?
For sure. So, stablecoins are very important in the blockchain industry and the crypto industry because they act as a coin that is pegged to something more stable like the dollar or the euro. So stable coins, like I said, are usually pegged to the US dollar, and because in cryptocurrency generally there's a lot of volatility, as we've seen Bitcoin tumbling from like high $60,000 to below $30,000 now in about 6 months time. So stable coins are mainly introduced to make sure that like long-term volatility is kind of like not such a big issue with long-term contracts and stuff like that. Also, stablecoins are very important because many exchanges use them if you want to cash out. I know for me in South Africa, I have to move to a stable coin and then convert it into my own currency. Stable coins, I mean, for long-term contracts, like if you want to borrow or something, you're taking out, you say, I'm having like $1,000 USDT lending, but if in the next 10 months, if we were using Bitcoin, it could be completely different because of the price volatility. And all of a sudden you have to end up adding more assets or more liquidity just because the price of the asset has dropped. So very much the same function as fiat currency, but just a digital form, and very, very important, I'd say, for growth.
Awesome. Yeah, so I mean, you said things I feel people do identify with, which is the provision of liquidity for exchanges, which of course, has its knock-on effect for the entirety of Web 3.0, and of course hedging against volatility, which is the big one, which I guess is the big characteristic with fiat currencies, why people trust fiat currencies. I mean, these things are good, but what could go wrong, right? What could possibly go wrong?
What could go wrong? I mean, if you've looked at the news recently, you can see that something definitely did go wrong.
A lot has gone wrong, hasn't it?
I think Terra lost something like more than $30 billion just because of the depegging of their stablecoin.
Yeah, I mean, it's great you mentioned that, because I'm like, what could these stablecoins really be doing so wrong? I mean, let's say we have the case of Terra, that's basically been undone at the moment. We do have rumors of other stable coins not exactly having the reserves to back their assets on paper, and we have allegations of such things across numerous other stable coins. So what do you think is really wrong here? What do you think is going on here?
So like you said, I think one of the big issues in the stablecoin space is the fact that these coins are sometimes, the assets that are backing them aren't always that stable. Well, I think in general, some centralized exchanges and centralized stablecoin solutions don't even always share their assets that they use for backing. So only recently, Tether, which is like the biggest stablecoin by market cap, proved that they again are fully backed, and they have different things backing them. So at the moment, I think they increased the amount of T-bills, T-bills being US Treasury bills. So those are like medium to long-term things, which are like a stable way to back your reserve, which is good for Tether. So the assets that you use to actually to like bolster your reserves of your stablecoin need to be very stable. They need to be, like they have to be something that can withstand long term. I mean, there are different kinds of stablecoins as well. And then there was an article in the Washington Post recently where they spoke about the Hong Kong dollar, and the Hong Kong dollar is actually pegged to the US dollar, but they trade like 7 point something to the dollar, but they are actually 110% backed by US dollars. So it's very interesting the type of assets that you use as your reserve for a stablecoin. So I think that's one of the major places where people are going wrong in creating stablecoins, is the assets that are actually used to back it.
Okay, that's fair enough. And a stable coin should, in theory, be backed by something stable, right?
Yeah, I mean, per the name, I would hope so.
You really would hope so, of
Yeah.
course. So, I mean, you did say that, of course, you have some of these assets that are not necessarily backed, that are backed questionably. The Hong Kong dollar that is backed by the US dollar. Well, I'm just thinking, what do you think these stable coin issuers really could do differently in a way that could foster long-term trust? It's not just the stability, it's not just the technical stability, of course, as you know, it's also a matter of trust and the impression that is actually given. When you have a situation where there has to be audits all the time, it means that there is low trust in the system. And what do you think could be done to foster long-term trust?
No, that's a very good point that you have there, because I remember even, I think last year, in the beginning of the year, Tether was, under scrutiny because people didn't actually know what they were using to back their coin, to back the stable coin. I think regulation is going to become a very big thing. I think governments might start stepping in. I mean, we've seen a very big push towards central bank digital currencies. A lot of countries busy working on those, and that is then basically a digital currency issued by the central bank of that country. So that's kind of the scary alternative, where the government start issuing stable coins instead of what I would suggest, or in my opinion would work really well, is like a decentralized autonomous organization, a DAO. So we have a DAO.
Sorry to cut you off. The funny thing, right now that you just mentioned the central bank denominated currencies, it just occurred to me. I mean, in theory, like, the stability of a central bank should really be good news. It's just that in this space, it probably might not be, right?
Ideally, like, your central bank would be like a central bank issued digital currency would be more like, there would be a lot more censorship like that. Like, the government would also have a lot bigger overview of that. But I think the more ideal situation is where you have a DAO kind of having oversight of these massive funds, and not strict regulation, but we have very good guidelines and policies. Where you see, okay, this happened to Terra, USDT, or I mean UST. We learn from these mistakes and we do something different. So I think it definitely boils down to having proper standards in place where people know that the assets backing the stable coins will ensure like a long-term stability. I mean, even if a central bank does issue it, the stability of that coin is dependent on the economy of that. I mean, so I mean, if Zimbabwe released a stable coin, you know, like that would not have been good, for example. So, I mean, I think it's a very interesting time to be in crypto. Stable coins require a lot of backing and require a lot of money. So private companies, it becomes very difficult or interesting rather when private companies start dealing with stuff like this. So maybe you would have a mix of private companies and central banks. It's very interesting. Well, one is good to go anyway, I think.
Wow, that sounds
yeah.
Yeah, that sounds utopian. Maybe a mixture of like central banks and private companies having better regulated stable coins, right?
Yeah, having proper regulation, having standards, and knowing that, you know, if this happens, if we implement this mechanism, you know, this could be the possible outcome. You know, like having big teams of people deciding making these very important decisions, because as you've seen with Terra, it's affected a lot of people, and a lot of people have lost of money. So, I mean, ideally that wouldn't happen.
I understand. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your comments. I really feel like, of course, we are, well, perhaps not necessarily at that point where, you know, large-scale regulation has to come in, but of course, definitely there is regulations on the way, and because people are going to be scared to lose their hard-earned money through stable coins that turn out to not be that stable. And of course, I hope, as every Web3 enthusiast, I definitely hope that there's a future where, you know, these stable coins are stable enough to guarantee the long-term viability of our entire ecosystem. So thank you so much, Robert. Thank you so much.
Massive pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's been awesome.
Absolutely.